everyone, I'm super thrilled. This is the first webcast we're hosting together with Cognism. Today we have two superstars with me and we're going to talk about a topic that's truly passionate in my heart, and it's about time management for outbound sales. I think it's actually a key to succeed. So how you spend your time wisely and how to invest it. So with me today, and of course, we always take the ladies first, right? I have Brahm Jagpal. She's a senior account executive from Cognism, and you've been working there since January 2019, so quite rising of a star, right?
Yeah, feels like a lot longer than it has been. But no, honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure the whole way through. So yeah.
Wonderful. You have truly worked your way up, and I'm sure that you have loads of experience, and I'm super impressed myself of the discipline you have, and I'm sure your keys to success will be beneficial to implement for a lot of sales teams out there. So I'm super eager to get going. What about you?
Yeah, honestly, so excited. This is actually my first webinar, so hopefully everyone can go easy on me. But all feedback, welcome.
I'm sure you will pull this up super way. And Anders Holmberg, you and I have been colleagues for quite some while now, and you've been at GetAccept for 4 years. You're actually the CSO. Hi.
Hi.
And you're one of the absolute first employees actually at GetAccept. And before I worked at GetAccept, I've been working within sales for a long time, and I must say you are one of the best negotiators I ever met. So I'm super thrilled to have you on board on this. And also, when I'm starting at GetAccept, we had this really good onboarding routine, I would say, and you were so relevant in the way you were sales coaching. So I'm absolutely sure that everyone listening in today will have some great learnings and the things that you have brought to the table at the success of GetAccept, which I actually would call a success story. So
thank you, Wilma. Those are nice words indeed. Thank you.
Nice words. I'm only honest, you know me too well.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
Okay, so I love the fact that we have the two different perspectives from different kind of roles. And for me personally, when I was working within sales for some years ago, I had a really good sales coach that actually taught me that, Wilma, you can't run in circles. You have to be really proper with your time management. So I would say, going back, watching my own sales results, that was a definite key, of course. So that's why I really wanted to moderate this webcast, and it's actually my first webcast as well. So I feel with you, Brahm. we're gonna ace this together.
Definitely.
So going into the topic today, I googled a little bit, and actually, according to SalesFlare CRM system, only 28% of the sales rep actually have a time management within their toolbox, I would say. So that's make it I would say quite an advantage if you have it, of course. And we all know it's super important to have time management, especially because we have the life management issues going into sales. So we can see that the stats say that if you have a time management, the productivity goes up and the stress levels goes down. And at least my experience working within sales, it's not a sprint. It's like a marathon again and again and again. You have a new week, you have a new month, and someone might say this is the most important week of the whole year, and you just feel it in your gut and you know you want to exceed it. So yeah, but okay, I think everyone is super excited about what you guys have to talk about this. So into the first question. Little bit about how a typical day would look like. Like what's the most challenging part when it comes to time management, and how do you go about creating an effective schedule for yourself and your team? Brahm, what's your takes on this?
Yeah, so I guess this is something that I've really varied, especially over my time at Cognism. So right now, if I was to pick out an average day, I'd say no day looks the same, but it would always consist of demonstrations, follow-up calls, and then any other tasks in between. So right now it's quite fluid. We have an SDR team that book in our demonstrations for us. So I very much have to control my schedule a little bit. Otherwise it could just control me. But I mean, starting off at Cognism, like as an SDR, I had a very rigid structure, and I knew straight from the start of my day, from confirming my demos, following up to X amount, my first block was always my priority tasks. Then I'll take down my sequence. So it would just be calls, time for a LinkedIn, email, then afternoon tasks and so forth again, I could follow that so rigidly. Coming into the AE role, I definitely couldn't. It just wasn't possible. So learning to be a bit more fluid. So one thing we do really well is when we have a demonstration, we have a meeting buffer just afterwards. So
that's great.
30-minute demonstration. And then, that meeting buffer, it isn't for a case of if the meeting overruns, and although naturally that happens, technical difficulties, but it's just for doing your admin. And then I'd block out relevant times and tell the top tasks that I've then prioritized around that. So I think that would then become my typical day in terms of how I'd outline it.
Yeah.
The challenge would be,
with that schedule that you have. And that, would you say, has Cognism provided you with this, or did you come up with it yourself?
Oh, I think it's a bit of a mixture. What we also do have, and it's something I was going to touch upon later, but we have a mentor-mentee system. And my mentor at the time, Catherine Gardner, shout out, she was also really kind of strong on structure. So at my previous company, it was me managing a lot, and it's something that I've always been a part of, and I just found life easier when I'm focusing on one task. But after kind of adopting her methodologies, and when we kind of implement our tech stacks as well, it's something we kind of built together, and it just worked really, really well.
Super interesting.
So collaborative.
Anders, I know that you have a strong passion about these kind of things, and I know we also have a week routine, right, for all the roles. Could you take?
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely this is one of the key success factors for any sales reps out there to get the most out of each week. I really like the thing that you mentioned, Brahm, with having a buffer. So not having the back-to-back meetings, because then also the admin is a lot smoother. It's so much easier to get everything done right after the meeting when everything is fresh. So that's something that I always recommend as well. But otherwise, if you look at my role today, it's also very much, I have many internal meetings now that I didn't have when I was a sales rep. So it's hard to have the same kind of block schedule that is maybe easier if you're a SDR or AE, even CS if you have like onboardings and so on. I'm really like old fashioned. I like to start the day by writing with a pen and paper, like what are my to-dos today, prioritize them, what is like urgent and what is important and what is really not important. And then I try to just get rid of that as soon as possible and take the hardest thing first. It's also a key thing, I would say.
I would totally agree on that, and sorry for interrupting you. And my question was, do you have someone you follow up to? Like, this is important, but it's non-urgent, or how do you like?
Do you mean like a person I look up to that has a good structure, or
mentee or friend, or I don't know? Do those hard, tricky parts that's super important but not urgent?
Not that I can, on the top of my head, just say it. I mean, of course, I think we all read like books, and I think in theory this is very easy. It's so easy to understand. Yes, this makes sense. This is how you should do it. The hard thing is to actually execute it and have it as a long-term strategy. And that's a mentality that some people seem to have more and some seem to have less. So some people are really good at following that structure week in and week out, whereas some need their manager to check on them a little bit more. And that's going to definitely affect the outcome.
I agree on that, and that was actually my next question. How do you make sure you stay on your schedule? But you both have been, talking a little bit about it, but if you could give away one tip each, begin with you, Brahm. How do you manage to stay on your schedule, or at least reminding yourself that you have a schedule that you would or should or might follow?
Yeah, good question. I follow my calendar to a T. If it's not in my calendar, I need there to be something blocked out for kind of it to happen. But obviously having those buffers really does help if there is any kind of excess overflow for other things. If I was to, hypothetically, like something we used to do for face-to-face meetings, obviously different world we live in, was actually set an alarm on our phone. So instead of having to check the clock every 2 minutes, everyone in the room then knows, okay, we have about 5 minutes left, let's just start to wrap things up. And then it's respectful of everyone's time, not just your own, and obviously impacting the next person's schedule that you're also speaking to.
I agree. So putting your alarm or your phone on an alarm, I think that is something a lot of sales reps use out there. Me myself do it still today with the important stuff. Anders, do you also use that, or what do you do?
I don't use the alarm that much, and to be honest, my calendar falls apart also, of course, at times. What I try to do is divide the year into halves. So when it's summer and when it's Christmas time, I always make sure that I book everything for the half year, that is like rolling meetings, and then I get time to clean out everything and start fresh and start over. So usually just before summer, just before Christmas, everything is kind of not as it should be in terms of time management, but yeah, so that would be my take on it. So to
That's a good
make
one.
sure you have time to prioritize getting a structure of your time.
Very good.
Reset.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you both. Going into the second question. I know both Cognis and GetAccept is super fast growing companies with high targets. So I assume that your defense or damage control, if one would say, during the spring was to be proactive. So my actually question is, how did you manage to stay productive and also like effectively manage yourself and or your teams when working remote? Anders, do you want to start, or Brahm?
Yeah.
Who's up?
Yeah, I can start. So yeah, we went remote as everyone else, I assume, more or less. And I think we as an organization understood that we need now we need to get more things done to get the same results, because a lot of dialogues will be prolonged for different reasons because of the uncertainty. But we also saw a good opportunity in these times for us, especially our product, because it's helping with digitalization as well. So the first 2 or 3 weeks, we really went into crazy active focus mode, and we actually increased our activity with 40% the first 2 weeks. But I mean, first 2 weeks or first month is one thing. It's another thing to have a long-term strategy for working at home or maybe in a mix. So that's where we are now, because yeah, I think it's going to be more and more remote work even after Corona. So it's going to be something that we need to.
So you basically more or less directly, or I know we did, we increased activity very, very high, I would say. And then we are now adjusting it to a more like balance going forward, or what is your like key learnings from that period? I mean, we can't increase the activity all the time. What have you learned that you will take with you going forward, and that you also would, encourage everyone else to be on top of?
I think short term, many people experience that when you are at home, you can be more efficient. You don't get interrupted. You can be more focused. So it wasn't that everyone worked 40% more hours or was 40% more stressed. It's actually just that the outcome was more. You were be able to get more activity out that was customer facing.
Interesting.
But then in sales, you also need motivation, and sometimes you need to have colleagues near beside you to get that feedback right away, especially maybe in the SDR roles. So that is like the balance to make sure we have that. And it would be interesting to hear you, Brahm, how you did it at Cognism.
Yeah, we were in a little bit of a kind of an unusual situation. In fact, my day-to-day didn't really change. We already did everything over Zoom, and everything was kind of remote, but in the office, if that makes sense. So I quite literally picked up my laptop, came home, and just set up my workspace. I guess the things that we really did miss, like you said, just literally turning around and speaking to the next person, asking a quick question instead of having to jump on a Slack call. But I think it's those points where you just have to be really organized, and actually, instead of just having a one-off that may actually break up your flow and break up what you're doing, actually just having it together and then spending time, okay, this is the task that I'm going to tackle here. So I think on that side of things, it was almost a little bit better, just because there were so many positives. People got used to using Zoom. There was no technical difficulties. People jumping on. These calls are being punctual. One thing I always find really funny is Zoom time is different to real world time. If someone is late, real world time, like 10, 15 minutes, like that's a long time to wait. But people jump on a Zoom call, they're 3 minutes late. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm really late. And you're just like, it's okay. It's been 3 minutes. I mean, not even the length of like a Katy Perry song. So it's in those moments that you realize that people almost respect each other's time a little bit more, because we're almost adapting to becoming more efficient as a way to really drive forward. otherwise it's just a case of how you're really going to find that time.
I have two things here. I think I just love that you just picked up your computer. So of course, the first question is, why did you do it before? That's the first one. And then the second one, you learned me before when we had a quick chat before this session, the recording, that you had this team check-in. So if you just could give me a little bit brief of those two.
Yeah, so in terms of obviously picking up my laptop, it was just a case of actual collectively as a team being together. As Anders did rightly mention, sometimes you need the camaraderie around you that really does drive you forward as well. But within an AE role, it's a little bit more isolating in terms of day-to-day, and it's quite different to our SDRs. I think SDRs more so, it's a lot better to have your whole team around you and following a similar schedule. Just having noise and activity can just almost sometimes you get a little bit fearful just to get going and just start. So it just pushes you that step further. Whereas for us, when it is just, you need to sit down and do your admin, you just need to sit down and do your admin, and you need to take that demonstration. It is just you following that process. But yeah, as rightly mentioned, yeah, we kind of adapt in terms of 3 different check-in points to kind of negate the time that when I could just turn around and just tap my director on the shoulder and be like, just have a minute. So it's in the morning, afternoon, evening. But we've now changed that again in terms of each meeting has a topic. So in the morning, it's in terms of how many demo allocation, any questions, kind of wins from the previous day and running through those use cases. So it's almost like a learning step. Then kind of midday is kind of optional if you do have any questions that come from the morning. And then the afternoon, so on a Monday it was let's run through our commits, and on the second day is okay, let's run through our tasks. So it's a little bit more across the whole team, and obviously everyone's also holding each other accountable as well.
Of course.
Isn't that a lot of internal meetings every day then, or
really short?
Is it worth it?
I think it's worth it because the morning meeting's 15 minutes, and that's if it takes 15 minutes. The one in the middle day is optional. So if you have other things to get along with, by all means, it's just a check-in. And then the evening meeting is again 15 minutes. We're quite a small team of AEs, quite close-knit in terms of that respect. But yeah, if you were a larger team, I would then recommend obviously breaking that up.
Okay,
so
that
way
going forward, we could bring with us that you can combine the work-home feeling and productiveness and get energized by hopefully meeting up people when we can due to the pandemic and everything, and also to maybe increase the internal communication with really quick, some of them optional checkups. Maybe that is some really tricks and tips going forward. And if we I think you were a bit on it, Anders. I think it's super interesting how to stay productive and proactive with less amount of effort. Is it the surroundings, or do we have something else here?
I think as a company, you need to have a data-driven approach to where your sales reps are spending their time. Which type of customers are we talking to? Which type of leads are we following up, and in what way are we doing demos and so on. So I mean, SaaS and many businesses out there is very data. There's so much data that you can use in order to make sure that the entire organization gets more and more efficient all the time. So it's not up to each and every individual rep to just make sure their calendar is set and so on. So
that is interesting. And you can maybe a little bit about our ICP, how often we do it, your thoughts about it, the importance or non-importance.
Yeah, so we have defined a really clear ideal customer profile that we try and target, especially when it's outbound. When it's inbound, we have a bit of a wider approach to it because we can be more efficient when the customers approach us. But so we know which industries, we know which size of the company, and which persons to target, and how their sales organizations look like, because we sell to the sales organizations. So, and then we track the number of deals, we call it, opportunities that we create that are in this segment and that are outside, because we all know we're not going to get 100% of the meetings in that as well. Times are changing, industries there still needs to be a little bit of room for creativity for each AE and SDR. But we have the goal on outbound to do 80% of our demos on our ICP.
Wow, that's good. That's good. And over to you, Brahm. What about ICP? Is that something you work with as well, or?
Yeah, that's something we kind of have set into place. We know kind of our green golden industries. I think from my perspective, it's a little bit different in the sense that if someone isn't within our ICP, my main job is actually just to qualify and keep that qualification ongoing, because actually they could be outside our ICP, but ICPs also change as well with different circumstances. So it's only from exploring that through additional qualification. I mean, I've had times where I thought, oh, this is really outside our ICP. It's not a typical client. Will there be the best fit? And actually, when you are going to the demo and you find out more information, that actually 100% is. And it's not something that should be kind of ruled out just on the face and on the surface. And it's obviously through, I'm guessing through that data, that having those different outliers, that sometimes things change.
Yeah, sorry. You go, Anders.
No, I mean, I agree. And sometimes there is always dialogues that go a little bit outside the data. So if you are a senior AE and you're experienced like you are, Brahm, and you know what questions to ask and what to then maybe look for, and maybe you have a little bit more of a research kind of approach if you know that you're in deep waters. But at the same time, we know that if we put as much effort in what the data says, and we fill the pipes with those kind of dialogues, it will be better and better.
Do you ever,
I guess it's a balance there. But,
I think it's interesting here that we're sliding into the next question, my question. What processes you have in place to like ensure the efficiency in the teams working faster and better? Was that something you were going to talk about, Brahm? Or
yes, I just had I guess it kind of slides into it a little bit, but I had a question for Anders just in regards to the data that you're getting. If you were to test out a new ICP, is that something you'd kind of A/B test and you'd test out with your SDR team, or is it a case of you test that against kind of inbound on that side? I'm just thinking in terms of that data, where is it coming from, or is it a case of you're just speaking to your team and finding what kind of experiences work there?
Yeah, no, it's not so much like interviews. It's much more like what hit rate do we actually have? What does our average contract value look on certain customers, and also the renewal rate and the gross retention, like how much do we upsell on each segment and so on. So and then of course we look into our gut feeling as well, and we do some estimations on which industries we think will be winners and which will suit us. But we have so much data now. We do so many calls and demos in the markets that it kind of makes sense. We had some industries that I think we booked like 100 demos and we closed like one customer. So it's like a 1% hit rate. And then we have some with like 30% hit rate, and it's the same customer or a size of company. So it's like,
this is super interesting when you have this all amount of data. And I know that we are striving to be even more data driven at GetAccept. But in the beginning, of course, we didn't have that amount of data. But both our companies are very process oriented, I feel. I mean, we're talking about the ICP, but we're also talking about how to handle when we are outside in the deep water. So what kind of processes do we actually have, Anders, you would say that is super important for us to follow to maintaining this kind of rapidly growth?
In terms of when we are in deep water or when we are at the ICP?
In sales in general.
Well, I would say the combination of data-driven, but also making sure everyone develops their own capabilities of judging by themselves as well, and becoming more and more aware of what we are and what we're doing, what our vision is, and so on. So I never want us to be 100% only data and take away all of the decisions that are made in each rep's head all the time, because that's really, really valuable as well.
Yeah. And what about you, Brahm? What would you say? What about your processes in sales? And
yeah, I think ours is very much centered around just support and structure. Support comes in quite a few different ways. So the reason I kind of brought it up was I have weekly one-to-ones with my direct line, my director. And one of the topics that we cover is kind of market feedback, how different demos have gone, how things are developing through our pipeline, just so outside the data before it's even got to that point is a possible avenue, because it could be that we didn't target something that's one other area that I could be closing more deals on, which would be fantastic. So having those one-to-ones weekly, really important, and especially for training. We have different topics. But we also have a kind of mentor-mentee system. So instead of kind of everyone's reliant just on kind of one individual, because we still are that kind of fast-growing company, we only promote internally. So by having that mentor-mentee structure, you're and not only have kind of additional port of call, you have someone that kind of went through the process and will instill in those best practices and also get you to step up to the next level that you'll then be passing down your knowledge. So it is very much just knowledge sharing. So between that and kind of team demo reviews being the best way to keep us working.
That's so interesting things to hear. And I also know you have some great tools that you use. What's your favorite tools that supports your process and enables you being even more successful as sales rep than you already are?
Yeah, fave tools. It's gonna be a mix. It could be either like company tools or personal tools. If I was going to say personal tools, I used to be a bit like Anders at the beginning, where pen to paper first in the morning, and I used to put everything on a sticky note, and it used to drive my director crazy because he was like, you're going to lose this is really important, you're going to lose it. So actually my colleague Harry actually pushed me over to an app called Todoist, which is absolutely fantastic. I can just really create those structures, links to my phone, to my laptop. It gives me hints and tricks sometimes on how to actually tick off my day. It's also gamified, so it feels like I'm winning every single time I'm ticking something off. Yeah, that's just, something that kind of hints to, I guess, my character. But I guess free, easy tool that everyone can use, and the likes of kind of Grammarly, and kind of mental health tools like Aura. But in terms of favorite day-to-day tools, I mean, I can't imagine doing my job without an enablement tool. So obviously, can't really get any better than like this kind of sales loft and outreach. But day-to-day, between that and Zoom, they would be kind of my top.
Awesome. And for everyone who's listening and like now super stressed, didn't write everything down, or summarize this when we launch the landing page, of course. And Anders, what about you? If you should pick like, I don't know, 3 tools or something, what's the most important ones that we have within sales today?
Well, in case of time management, I actually don't have any like advanced tools that I use in terms of that. I use the normal note tool that is in the Mac to write down everything that I didn't have time to do in pen and paper. So whenever I get an idea or I get like a to do something I need to get done, I just write it there, and then I bring it down to pen and paper on a day-to-day basis. But other than that, I would say
each question here, or is this like pen and paper going digital, or?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I will check yours, the tip that you had there, Brahm. I can definitely improve. I think just I think one tool that is actually both a big time thief, but also saves me a lot of time is actually LinkedIn. I'm using that to do a lot of messaging with customers and old colleagues and network and so on, which saves me time because I don't have time to maybe take meetings all the time. So that's actually saving me time like that. But it's also, of course, taking time to sometimes to check that. But yeah, that's what I have. And then, of course, the CRM is a lifesaver for collecting all the data, knowing where we are, what we should focus on, and so on. So,
of course, I totally agree with you. I have a huge passion for CRM data and all that kind of ways. Now we are wrapping up to the final question, actually. And we all know the importance of killing your darlings when it comes to deals. So if you should, like, in 1 or 2 minutes, just sums up how you, like the story of you, how you bring the most, or spend the best time on the right deals and not focusing on the other ones. The 80-20 rule, 8 of the time to the 20% of the clients that actually gives you the most of sales. Brahm, we begin with you.
Yeah, I think it's all going to come down to qualification, and it just needs to be ongoing throughout every single call that you have, and needs to be maintained, because priorities will always change for business. You can have a first demonstration, they're like, yeah, we want something ASAP. And then you speak to them kind of a week later and they'll be like, oh, XYZ happened, we lost a really big client, or something else happened, and life gets in the way, and that's always going to happen. But so long as you're always qualifying, maintaining that, and then maintaining that in your pipeline. I prioritize all my tasks as high, medium, low. And if that changes, I always prioritize everything that's high first. I just adjust it, and I keep adjusting it. And actually, if you're on a demonstration, they're not the best fit, act like a consultant and just be honest. The more honest that you are, the more comfortable you can make your kind of future prospect client feel, is the more honest that they can feel with you. And actually, if the timing is not right, then saying, okay, well, right now, obviously it's great that you kind of have a deeper understanding, but maybe it would be best to maybe catch up in 6 months time when situations have changed, and that's okay.
I love that, like make it easy for the customer to take a decision. It doesn't have to be yes. It can also be no or not now, maybe later, something like that. I love that perspective. That's really good.
Totally agree. That's that's a big passion I have also, and that we talk about every day, that we should make it easy to take decisions. It is quite hard to take decisions now. So many options for everyone. But other than that, I mean, I totally agree, Brahm. I don't know.
From your
if I can add anything more, it's just having that mentality that we're not going to sell to everyone no matter what. We're going to look at the case and determine we and the customer if it's a good fit. So if it's not, then we should dare to say no. We should have the mentality that we should say no to cases as well. That will save so much time for everyone in the long run when it comes to onboarding, making the customer happy, making them renew,
From your perspective, for people that are a little bit scared to say no or would just don't say anything, are there any kind of strong indicators from your standpoint that you'd always feel hesitant to not give a decision? I guess in terms of advice, so if it was me speaking to you and you said that you were coming up to making a decision there, are there any situations that you've been in where you said, actually, I'm not sure, and you haven't actually lent one way or the other, or do you always give a strong yes or a no?
Do you mean when I'm about to buy something, maybe?
Yes, when you're about to buy something. Probably should have left it.
I think at the early stage of the relationship, so on, that is where you determine if you trust one another. If the salesperson you're talking to is trustworthy and knowledgeable in the area. So if you get those two things right, then you have a much higher chance to get an honest answer from the customer. If they don't think that you have that you're trustworthy, they're probably going to hide away a little bit more.
I think we should sum this up to next webcast, maybe about how to negotiate. That's super interesting to have both of your takes on that. So,
I want to see Anders in action.
But now you put the bar so high, so you're going to have someone else in that.
No. We will see. But okay, from my perspective, to sum this up, we have talked a lot about the structure, having a schedule, the process. We've been talking about tools that you can use, both the ones that are free and that you have to invest more in, for example, the CRM. We also talked about like team checkups and mentor-mentee program to have even better collaboration between the teams and the knowledge sharing, of course, and a huge passion I have for the ICP as well. And lastly now, before we end, if we should pick one thing that the audience today should bring with them, what would that be, Brahm?
I think time is something you just can't be flexible on. So maintaining, having meeting buffers, not running over, you're not only respecting each other, but you're also respecting yourself. Because if it's not coming out of your day-to-day work time, it's coming out of your personal time. There's only so many hours in the day. So making sure that you are sticking closely to a structure that you have put in place and having a buffer. I mean, obviously there will be occasions that you run over, but the closer you can stick to it, the better for everyone.
Yeah, like control the time so the time doesn't control you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I would say to kind of bridge into that I think the biggest hack that you can do is learning to say no. Learning to say no to internal meetings that doesn't give value, or customer cases, prospects that you don't think will be a good fit. Or other like internal initiatives that pop up. There are so many good ideas and so many could-be's out there, but we only have a certain amount of time. So say no. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's super tricky, but I agree. I'm trying to learn, inspired even though I always think you say yes to me, I think. So maybe I don't ask you enough of questions. I don't know. But okay.
You're the good negotiator, maybe.
We'll see. But thank you everyone for listening today. Thank you so much, Brahm and Anders, for sharing your experience and your knowledge. I'm sure that everyone who's listened today have learned something new, or at least refreshed old knowledge. And of course, as we said, the key takeaway will be on a landing page with the tips of the tools, and of course, together with a recording of this session. So thank you so much, both of you. Super interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good luck crushing your quarters, everyone.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.